Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Victoria Garris, and I am going to be talking about financial lessons for single moms. And this was on my heart because I used to be a single mom for 7 years, 6 years, 6 years. And it was really a time that God just completely transformed me. I got saved while I was pregnant at the age of 18 and have been walking closely with the Lord since. I grew up Christian, but I mean, it's different when you are actually declaring that Jesus is your Lord and Savior and you are obeying Him and following Him than just when you go to church on Sunday and just that's it. But anyways, I am going to be diving into some financial lessons that I learned so that you can get out of debt, save money, and also just hear from my experience. I know that whenever I would look up resources as a single mom, I would kind of get discouraged when it was just coming from a married person's point of view or someone in a different situation. For me specifically, I was single, never married as a mom. And so I would run into a lot of stuff with divorce. And so if you are divorced, that, I don't want to say that's totally okay. I'm saying your experience is definitely going to be different than mine. I don't have that. But I think that we can all agree that finances are a top struggle or priority or stressor as a single mom, just because you're the sole provider of your kids. And you are the one that has to make sure that everyone gets fed, there's a roof over their head, and that you are also taken care of and your bills are taken care of and just all these different things. So I just want to start with sharing with you, back when I graduated college in 2021, I was so grateful and just at peace because I didn't have student loans and I didn't have a car payment. I was very blessed that my parents were generous and they paid for those things. And so that did give me such a great advantage. And I don't say that to, brag, but honestly to boast in how good the Lord is, because looking back at it as I'm sharing this with you now, I remember thinking oh my goodness, how there's so many people that have a $400 or $500 car payment, even more, or student loans. And as I been getting older in my adult years, I'm God really knew what He was doing through my parents' generosity and their provision, and ultimately God's provision. And so that's something that I never take for granted. But despite that, I still wasn't prepared, for different financial struggles as a single parent, full-time working mom and adult. You graduate from college and you think you have everything figured out, and maybe you do get a really good job, but it's what do you do from there? And so my parents, they didn't really teach me much more than just, save money, don't get into debt, and that was kind of it. But I didn't really, you don't really understand why and just the ins and outs of that. And then until you're an adult, you kind of, you learn more about your parents and you learn more about how the world works. And so now it all makes sense. But anyways, I don't have a crazy $1 million debt story. But debt and I were BFFs for a good 5 years after college, not during school. Thankfully, I didn't take out a credit card I did open it up my senior year, but not, as a freshman. But today we are debt free, and I say we because my husband insists that it was our debt and not just mine, and that is very kind of him. But I know I'm not ashamed to say that I brought it into the marriage. It was my fault that I brought the debt into the marriage. I'm not afraid to own it. So just being real with you. But I had about $6,000 worth of credit card debt. And while I am not proud of that of any means, I will own it. But there's 3 solid lessons that I learned along the way. And I'm pretty sure there's more than that. But just these are the main things that I want to share with you. So we're just going to jump right into it. And the first one is you cannot spend more money than you make. You cannot spend more money than you make. So what is the solution to this? It is a budget. You need to have a budget. You must have a budget. And this one's pretty straightforward, but if a budget scares you, I totally understand. I used to get scared of tracking things and staying on top of it, but this is so necessary to have as a single mom because you need to know how much is going out every month and how much is coming in every month. And if there's more going out than what's coming in, this is where you're getting stuck in the endless cycle of overdue bills, not having enough for the $10 school expense that sneaks up on you, and you end up putting it on the credit card, which then leads to the next cycle of always being in debt. Or maybe you're just living paycheck to paycheck and you are just thinking to yourself, when am I ever going to get out of this? So there is a way to not live like that. I will say that before I got married, while I was still a single mom, thankfully my husband, taught me a lot of things, kind of coached me through this, but I had to practice the discipline. I could have easily, just kept going and getting coffees and whatnot, which I wasn't really doing that, but just, kind of excusing little things here and there, but I didn't. And so I'm going to have all these links that I share with you below, but a big resource and thing that helped me was actually changing banks. And I started using Ally Bank as a single mom, and it's LLY Bank. I'm not sponsored at all. I'm literally just sharing this because I just found it so helpful. But this bank, it's online, so there's not like a physical brick and mortar building, but you have the ability to use buckets to help you budget for future expenses and just keep you on track. And so I did that a lot when it came to our wedding expenses. I did that also with my daughter's summer camp. I would make sure that I did my budget. When I went over it, I was like, okay, I'm going to put an automated transfer to this bucket to make sure that I have enough money for her summer camp every week, every time, the charge hit. And so that was super helpful. I'm trying to think of exactly what I used for my budget. I think I just used a spreadsheet. So I wish I had a free resource for you, but I will say there's so many different YouTube videos out there. I know when I first started getting really into budgeting, was my senior year of college, and I looked at the Budget Mom. She was my favorite person to follow and watch, and I even got her template, and so I did that for a little bit. But the next thing with this lesson is I watched and listened to a lot of Dave Ramsey. And if you're thinking, ew, I'm not going to listen to him, hold on, just go listen to an episode. You will not regret it. And the nice thing about it is that there's more than one person. There's more than just Dave Ramsey. His daughter is on it, Rachel Cruz, and there's also three other people, and the episodes can be funny. They're entertaining, but you learn a lot about, their system of getting out of debt and saving money and saving for retirement and different things. And you learn about the different baby steps. We are currently on baby step 3, which is having a fully funded emergency fund. So I'll do the first 3 baby steps for you. Then step number 1 is getting an emergency fund of $1,000. You can do slightly more than $1,000, but you're still making minimum payments on any credit cards or debt that you have. And then after that $1,000, you are hitting full force to paying off all your credit cards, doing the smallest or the largest amount to the smallest amount. And then step number 3 is having a fully funded emergency fund. So that means that you are saving up 3 to 6 months worth of your living expenses in case an emergency happens, like you lose your job. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, I lost my job back in November, and thankfully we had our emergency fund. I mean, thankfully my husband still had his job, but there was still a little bit of that cushion there in case, a surprise expense came up or whatever the case may be. And it just gives you a peace of mind. And I will say, when I was a single mom and I had my $1,000 emergency fund saved up, it gave me such a relief, because I want to say I used it at one point. I used a good amount of it for something. I just cannot remember. And it's such a punch in the gut when you don't have any money saved and you have to spend $800 on tires or something. That $1,000 covers it will cover like those things that just come up in life as an adult, or even with your child. Maybe you don't have health insurance right now for some reason, and that $1,000 will help cover for a medical bill, like if they have to go to the doctor and get medicine, whatever the case may be. It's just very smart to have that. And so what I love about Dave Ramsey the most is that his principles are based in scripture. So he quotes a lot of proverbs, like the borrower is slave to the lender, when he talks about debt. And so I have heard people say, like, I don't follow him like to the T, but I will say, like, if you really need a good starting point, like, go listen to the Dave Ramsey show, go check his website out. I'll have his podcast linked in the description, but it's just a great way to start if you like have no idea what to do. And from there, you just find what works best for you. So there is that. The second lesson I learned was to live on less than you make. And I learned this not only from Dave Ramsey, but when my husband and I were dating, he told me about how he grew up with 3 other brothers. He's the youngest of 4. And his dad was a realtor during the 2008 financial crisis. His mom stayed at home. And they had to be frugal to survive. Like, they had to make sure that they were, doing the hand-me-downs. They weren't eating out that much. And so for me, once I made a budget, I realized that I was spending a lot more than what I made. And that's why I was always kind of like trying to keep up, feeling behind, living paycheck to paycheck. And I'm not trying to be on a Dave Ramsey horn, but again, he just, like, learning from him really helped me get some structure and how to budget. And this lesson is still one that I have to remind myself of, because let's be real, you can have your grocery list, you can have your budget, but if you're still putting things in the cart at Target or an Amazon that can either A, wait to be saved up for, or B, you really don't need, you're not going to make any progress. So more often than not, that thing that you think you need is actually something you want. And I am, calling the kettle black here, because I still have to remind myself, like, I love skincare, and I have to stop myself from like convincing myself that I need a new moisturizer when I actually just need to finish the one I already have before I try a new one. And it's funny because I actually do need a new one. I threw out the one that I was like, it was almost empty, and I cleaned the bathroom the other day and I threw it out, and now I don't know where it is. And so now I actually need one. So it's funny how I wrote about that. But anyways, yeah. And another thing is like name brand things. Like, there's so many people who just are convinced that name brand is always better. I buy a lot of Walmart, Great Value brand. I buy Aldi brand. Aldi is my number 1 grocery store. I always save money when I go there, and I just make sure to have a grocery list. I will tell you that. But, just thinking about, your weekend meals too, like planning ahead for anything, I think is always the best way to go about it. And if you're someone who stresses about food on the weekend, like even if it's frozen pizza, I'm hearing that takeout pizza is costing up to $20-$30. That is expensive. And so you have to, keep your priorities in check. And living on less than you make is about keeping your priorities in order. Like, I know some people really love Bath and Body Works, and I know that those soaps can add up and be expensive for the whole house. So would you rather have, I don't know, $50 to $75 for Bath and Body Works soaps that literally get washed off down the drain? Or would you rather put that $50 to $75 towards an emergency fund for, a potential dentist or medical bill that may come up? So it's just food for thought. And, there are things here and there that you can budget for. Like, if you like to have a Starbucks every week, like, budget that in, like, make it work. But as long as it's making sense financially and you're not putting yourself in a hole, like, then you do. And unfortunately, like, I hate to say it, but actually I don't hate to say it, I'm just trying to be real with you. You do have to sacrifice things for sometimes, and that's okay. Even for my daughter, I had to practice saying no. Like, no, you cannot get a Kinder Egg at checkout every single time we go to a store. And so it's helpful for them to learn that too, like delayed gratification. And I think that you're doing more harm than good when you tell them that they can get this little treat, blah, 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 blah. Like, sometimes mom and dad have to make tough choices. And even if it's in those little things, it adds up over time. So live on less than you make. You won't regret it. And let's move on to the last lesson. This one is about giving God his 10%. And when you give God his 10%, he will never put you in a hole. And so I was reading Proverbs this morning, and this verse actually stood out to me. And this is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 9 through 10. And it says, "Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine." So what are your first fruits in this verse? Well, it's referring to the tithe, which is the 10%. And so if you make $100, you would give God a tithe offering of $10 at church that week. And I have been tithing since I have been working, and I've been working since I was 15. And I truly believe, because I have been faithful to the Lord with that 10%, he has remained faithful to me. And I just have never lacked anything that I needed or my daughter needed when it was just us two. When I was pregnant with her, in college as a freshman, I could not tell my parent, like I told my mom, but I couldn't tell my dad for a while because, my mom just wanted me to wait. And I was so worried about like school and money and what that was going to look like. I received $1,000 scholarship that year. And then I also received a $4,000 scholarship for the following year that I could use for anything, child expenses, school, whatever it may be. And so God, in his kindness and generosity, provided in a way that I never thought I would be able to. And it's not this type of thing where it's like, oh, I do this for you, you do this for me. No, I give my tithe, or like we give our tithe, my husband and I, every time we get paid, and we do it with joy. And I just texted him like this past time we gave our tithe, because he handles it for us, and he tells me the amount, and I just thought to myself, like, wow, Lord, what a blessing to be able to give this amount to you. And thank you for our jobs. Thank you for providing, and just really having a heart posture of gratitude and also humility. Because I remember when I, was in college and I wanted to make some money somehow, and I got a job at the church whenever, like during summers and breaks, to work in the childcare area. And I was probably only getting paid like $10 an hour, but it was something. And now I think about how God has increased, not only, my skill set, but also my pay with that being said. And that's just a blessing. And so I say this not to boast in myself again, but to boast in how good God is and how real he is. And if you think he doesn't see you in your financial struggles, that's just not true. I pray that you would not believe that lie. God sees every single part of your heart and every single struggle and worry that you go through. And so if you don't know where to start surrendering your control over your finances to God, I strongly challenge you and urge you to start giving 10% of your pay, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly, to your local church where you attend. And if you don't go to a local church, then I pray that God would put the right church in front of you. We go to a Baptist church. I've talked about this before. They're just biblically sound. I love it. I love the people there. I love my brothers and sisters. And so I'm going to end it there, but that is it for today's episode. And I hope this helped you in your financial journey and your spiritual walk with God. And remember, you can trust God with all and every area of your life. If anything, if you listen to these episodes, that's all I want you to remember, is that you can trust God with all and every part of your life. So please leave a review if you enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. I've really loved writing this and recording it for you, and it just brings such joy to my face to put episodes like this out for you. So I'm going to do it more. But anyways, have a great one, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.